To play on their humor. Yeah, humor as a strategy. Say again. To find their weakness. Say more about that. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Hezekiah, I'm not worried about that tonight. Anything, if they give a good answer, if they give an answer, I'll repeat it back just like I did just now. So we're not going to run anymore. This is, yeah. If we're going to run, we're just going to all sit around the same table and pass around a mic. Uh-huh. Yeah. So the flippancy is you take something that's true and honest and good and make light of it. Yes. Yeah. For those of you who didn't hear, Jan says that flippancy is to make light of something that's serious. That's right. Yeah. So I think the primary strategy this week was to use humor, and we'll talk more about this, but to ultimately to affect the patient's attitude towards serious things. So humor is the tool. And I think attitude is the location of this strategy. We'll talk more about that. What did you find personally interesting in this chapter?
All the chapters tend to probe, looking for weakness.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Looking for a soft spot.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. Laughter and joy. Say that again? You can't get through. When we kind of, Screwtape can't really get through that. That's a protection. The protection of joy, you said? Joy and laughter. Yeah. That was fascinating. A negative, like with a flip. Mm-hmm. The flippancy is more of a negative. Yeah. So it was interesting that, I don't know if you've ever thought about this, but there are different kinds of laughter. And he identifies 4 different kinds. And some are more benign for his ends, and his strategies than others. But that the joyful one, the joyful laughter is something that our enemy has no weapons he can forge against. That's worth pondering. We're going to come back to that too. So, I'm sorry, I may have to run this. I'm so hard of hearing.
Not a problem. It's interesting. He portrays Screwtape. I'm talking about Lewis. Portrays Screwtape exhibiting every single one of the things he's saying that will lure or trap the kid.
Yeah. As being worked on?
As being applied.
Yeah.
By Screwtape.
Yeah.
His pupil.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, he does it himself. What about this table over here? What did you find interesting?
Well, I think like she was saying about the joy, the joyful laughter and how he kind of tells him, that occurs in heaven and kind of.
Right.
Try to. So, that was interesting that he even brought that up.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought just like the differentiation between the different kinds of laughter.
Yeah.
Was interesting, and I've caught myself thinking about the difference just randomly sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
But to like actually see the thought process.
Yeah. Did anybody else have that reflective moment where you think about what kind of laughter do I engage in?
The best laughter I have is when I'm laughing at myself.
Oh yeah.
Everybody else is enjoying it. I mean, both of us. I've done something really stupid.
Yeah.
And so if you think of that, it's selfless.
Yeah.
It's honest and it's real.
Yeah. I mean, it's a source of a good joke, right? There's an incongruity. That's what he meant by the incongruity, that something isn't as it should be. The universe is out of sorts, and it's benign, and it's harmless, and it's comical, right? Yeah. Okay. Well, here's what I found. One of the most interesting things, maybe this was also a challenging thing as well, was that the most dangerous people, Lewis says, were the religious ones. That actually this couple has now introduced him to the rest of his friends, their friends. He says the whole set of them. And he names them as being particularly religious, which is interesting because if what Lewis is saying is true, then that means that these types of people are among us. And even scarier, what it means is these kind of people may become us if we're not careful, if we don't pay attention to these types of strategies that our enemy uses. So I thought that was really interesting, that the example par excellence of this flippant attitude were actually religious people. Okay, what did you find challenging to hear, that is, to agree with or to understand?
But again, the part that bothers me so much is that it's so scheming in how
Yeah.
they can penetrate any deficiency or non-strength that you have
Yeah.
in your faith.
Yeah. Yeah, if you've got a weakness over time, they're going to find it. Just going to keep moving, taking shots on goal. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I like that Wormwood has spent a long time trying to tempt a man that didn't work.
Oh, yeah. You like that his efforts were spoiled.
Unbearable hours.
Yeah. Yeah, that's good. Amen. Anyone else? Was there anything about, you read this and like, I don't really know what this means, other than the occasional word that Lewis uses that we have to pull out our dictionaries for? I told you all that, right? When I first read C.S. Lewis, I had to learn to read him with a dictionary in hand.
I had a grandmother who was very verbose and used a lot of vocabulary.
That didn't translate to me, unfortunately.
Well, I don't know if I told this group this, but Lewis, he spoke 7 languages, including Elvish. And when he and his wife, Joy Grisham, played Scrabble, all languages were game.
Oh, wow.
You thought you were the Scrabble king. You got nothing on the Lewis clan. That's pretty serious. Were there any concepts though, that didn't really make sense or stood out to you as like, man, I think this is important, but I don't really understand what he's saying? No. Pretty straightforward. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that's right. That's good. Well, you're.
What about the line about cruelty is shameful unless the cruel man can represent it as a practical joke? I was thinking of that as a bully.
Yeah, exactly. That's a great example, actually. Yeah, I mean, a bully is doing a cruel thing, but whenever he's got all of his buddies yucking it up with him and laughing, he's doing it comically, right? It's he's actually celebrated, right?
When he uses that and says, well, I was only kidding.
Yeah, yeah,
And like there's no malice behind that.
yeah. It's almost like when we say we're just kidding, we're distancing ourselves from the act that we all know to be beneath us as Christians. Yeah, and it's self-deceive, and it's attempting to deceive others. Yeah, it's basically just lying, right? Because you weren't just kidding. You meant it. You just didn't like what it said about you. I don't know about you. I mean, bully is a great example for that one. But the moment when I read that line, I thought, oh, how many times have I said, oh, I'm just kidding. I was just picking, But really, I meant it. Right? But I knew that it went too far.
Many of us probably had parents who said, no, you weren't just kidding.
Yeah, right.
They'd call you on the carpet.
Mm-hmm.
I did.
So I think the point that Lewis is making with that in particular example, I think where he really wants to take us to is flippancy. But when he's showing us with the example of cruelty or cowardice, what he's showing us is that laughter, it's a powerful force. That it can exonerate you immediately before your peers when you make a cruel act, if you can somehow twist it into being a joke. right? I mean, laughter is a powerful thing. There's some deep psychology going on there, but somehow laughter is it's a powerful force. And as we'll see, is one that can bring us either closer into our Father's house or to our Father's house or his Father's house. Okay, last question here. What, if anything, was encouraging to you? Jan says the most encouraging thing to her was that sometimes the devil spins his wheels and wastes his breath. What else is encouraging to you from what you read today? Sandy, what are you thinking?
Thinking about being around a group of joyful people is a protection.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, that's good.
And how hard it is to find that efficiency to penetrate
Mm.
and get some evil into their lives. So it's not easy. And he's given all kinds of tactics to
Yeah.
find.
Well, and it's not easy, especially when you are a part of a community that has this joyous laughter thing happening. I remember when I first came to faith, when I first started trying to learn to walk with God in college. So I got saved when I was 12, but there was no discipleship, and my imagination and my attitude and my humor was still formed by my peers, the culture, the world. And I got to university, and I found this great college ministry and this great fellowship. And one of the first things I noticed was that my sense of humor did not fit in here. And I noticed that I'd make a joke, and it would be flat, right? And I was like, oh, it was shameful. It helped me to actually feel a sense of godly shame. But I use this as an example just to say, like, here was, like, maybe had I not been in this grander community that had this joyous laughter happening, maybe one off, or maybe if that one person was with me and my peers, I'd make that joke, everybody would laugh, and this person would feel the pressure to also laugh along with us, right? But there was a protection to this community thing, right? Yeah, it's powerful. Laughter's powerful, community's powerful. I think that's what we're seeing, both. Say that again. Yeah. That was a beautiful image. I was really trying to capture. I think that was maybe one of the places I wish he would have waxed eloquently a little bit more. There was something really special about that. This idea that he was mingling these ideas of laughter and dancing and music and the rhythm of heaven, and it was just in this ever accelerating rhythm. It was powerful. Remind me of a way that I've heard some theologians speak of the Trinity as this divine dance that we've been invited into to participate in. And so this idea of joy and laughter and music as a way of entering into the divine dance. Anyway, yeah, there's a lot there. I wish, again, I think he explores that elsewhere, but he didn't take it too much there, but it did pique my interest as well. Okay, let's flip it over. So we did notice that the primary strategy, I'm saying here the primary strategy or the target of your strategy was attitude. And the way he uses the way that he is trying to affect the attitude of the patient is through humor. So in this chapter, Screwtape's primary encouragement to Wormwood is to manipulate the patient's attitude toward all things serious. Remember we talked a couple weeks ago, or maybe it was last week, about just how important attitude was. Attitude says a little bit about where you've been. It says a lot, if not everything, about where you're going. I told that story about that young man who was asking all these questions about the faith. And to him, he was asking good questions, but really it was his bad attitude. The problem was not in his head, it was in his heart. The posture of his heart was bent and turned away from God. And therefore, all of his questions were really just looking for holes, looking for reasons not to believe, right? Which is very different from a heart, from an attitude that says, Lord, I don't understand, but I want to, right? This is that man who comes to Jesus for healing for his son and says, Lord, I believe, but help my unbelief, right? This is faith looking for understanding, faith seeking understanding. The difference between these two people is their attitude. So the primary encouragement to Wormwood in this chapter is to manipulate the patient's attitude toward all things serious, especially the faith, by using humor and laughter. He carefully notes, however, that humor is morally ambiguous. In other words, it can be used by either our father, meaning the devil, or the enemy, meaning our father, right? It can be used by either our father or the enemy to draw the patient into his house. Again, just to highlight that word draw, just this picture of it being a slow, steady, consistent, luring us down one path or the other. Not the decisions that derail us are not typically grand, but they're subtle. The key Screwtape suggests is to keep the patient ignorant of this ambiguity and to subtly encourage the right kind of laughter. Why do you think it's important? Why do you think Screwtape suggests that he keeps the patient ignorant of the different kinds of laughter? Right? Mm-hmm. Yeah. But you know, but why do you think it's important that he not be that? Because right now he's assuming the patient can't distinguish. He just thinks laughter is laughter is laughter. But Wormwood is saying no, or Screwtape is saying no. Actually, there's very different kinds of laughter. Some that we can exploit, but we want to make sure that he's not aware of that. Why do you think it's important to keep the patient ignorant of the different kinds of laughter? Why is ignorance important?
Wisdom gives you choice.
Say again.
Wisdom gives you choice.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I hope if we can see right and wrong,
Mm-hmm.
at least we come to a choice.
Yeah. Yeah.
And otherwise, we're sort of just drifting along.
That's right. Yeah. If you, the drift is easier when you're ignorant to the choices that you are or are not making. That's really good, Jan. Anyone else?
Well, it's kind of like when you're, where do you get your news? Let's say.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if you're ignorant and you're just listening to this source and not looking at it yourself or trying to investigate it yourself,
Mm-hmm.
you're only hurting yourself.
Yeah.
And I think
Yeah.
that that's opening the door too, because in a different way.
Right. Right.
That way, if they're listening to this body laughter that, that Wormwood is kind of using in his favor, then that is going to draw him, and
Yeah.
it's just going to, the ignorance is bliss kind of thing. You're
Yeah.
just blinded and you're just going.
That's right. That's I think right on target. Because we've identified, like Sandy was pointing out, there's this great, beautiful, joyous laughter that can sound and taste like heaven. If we don't understand that there are different kinds of laughter and different attitudes associated with those laughters, then we could just conflate all laughter and say, well, because I know that laughter I had with Sandy at fellowship at the gathering place last week was good, this laughter can't be bad, right? It can't be dangerous. So one of the important strategies of the enemy is to keep us ignorant of the different kinds of laughter so that we will continue to conflate them and just assume that all laughter is benign. All humor is benign. So yeah, I just thought that was an interesting point, that ignorance is always one of the main tactics. And this is why it's important for us to learn to love God with all of our mind. We need to learn to think critically about the faith and to think critically and to live reflective lives, examining ourselves and our motivations. Because it's in ignorance that the enemy is able to, basically, there's no defense where ignorance endures. Okay, so most effective is the kind of laughter. Most effective is the laughter that accompanies and cultivates flippancy. Jan, you helped us with this definition. Basically, I'm just riffing off of Jan here. Flippancy is the habit or attitude of treating everything as trivial, mocking, or beneath serious consideration, especially matters relating to the faith, such as virtue. And virtue, when we use the language like virtue, it's not really, maybe you hear people use the word virtuous today. We know what the meaning of it is, but when you read people like Lewis talk about virtue, they're talking about Christ-like character. So think about the fruits of the Spirit. So flippancy is the habit or attitude of treating everything as trivial, mocking, or beneath serious consideration. Have you ever met someone like that? Does someone come to mind right now when you think of someone who treats serious things trivially or mocks them? What kind of person are they? What is it like to be around this kind of person?
I'm thinking of a comedian.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Not,
Oh, that's a great point. Yeah,
I mean, so I'm uncomfortable
yeah.
as he rattles on about things that are not,
Mm,
they're hurtful and harmful, and
yeah.
I'm very uncomfortable.
Oh, that's a really great point. And actually, I wish I had thought about this. This would be a good thing to meditate on later. But I mean, some comedians are like cultural critics or like very insightful. They use humor to actually expose these incongruities that we just assume are normal and as they should be. And they help us, they kind of expose the idiocy of, or the problems that we have just kind of adopted as normal, right? So sometimes they can be quite prophetic. But other times they can be quite trivializing and mocking. And they're funny, but it's just empty, right? And it's vacuous, and it leaves you not encouraged in any way, but actually feeling quite alone.
It's sort of like hearing a comedian make fun of his wife.
Mm.
You know, and you think, you're so shallow.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you know,
Yeah.
But that's
Yeah.
flippant.
Yeah, that's a good example.
They're
Yeah.
making something serious and making
Yeah. 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 That's right. Okay, so this posture, picking up after Christ-like character, this posture serves two purposes. So the posture of flippancy serves two purposes. One, it keeps the patient from self-reflection, undermining repentance before it can begin. And two, it prevents the soul from ever taking truth seriously enough to obey it. So this attitude of being flippant, of being trivial and mocking the weighty things of life, the things that really run deep with people, the things that really matter, it leads us to do two things. One, it keeps us from being self-reflective, and it keeps us from ever taking truth seriously enough to respond to it, to obey it. Okay, so some questions on what we've just talked about here. Why is laughter such a powerful force for both good and evil? We talked about this. Comedians can do this. Humor can draw us. It can draw us. There's the joyful kind and the flippant kind. What is it about laughter that makes it such a powerful force for good or evil?
best laughter is shared.
I agree. Yeah.
Laughter is shared. You just both break out. Yeah.
I was gonna say, for one, it's contagious,
Yeah.
Laughter is contagious,
Yeah.
whether you're laughing at something good or something evil,
Yeah.
it can spread to the whole.
Yeah, it is, right. It has a social, cohesive sort of property to it that makes it really powerful. What else? That can relieve some pressure in a tense moment. But that can happen good or evil. The question is, though, why? What is it that makes laughter so powerful?
It's inclusive. I mean, if you walk by a room and you hear a bunch of people laughing,
Yeah.
you automatically want to go see what
Yeah.
are they laughing at?
Yeah. That's right.
I mean, it draws you.
Yeah.
So I mean, I think that it's just one of those things that people are just absolutely
Yeah.
drawn to.
Yeah, it's magnetic. I love that. Contagious.
You help us here. A man I know, I read a book about a man who had cancer,
Mm-hmm.
and he turned to I Love Lucy and started watching it constantly and laughing. And his spirit he was healed. He thought God had healed him through the joy he felt through the day.
Wow. Wow.
I
I have no idea how that happened, but I'm not. But in a sort of precognitive way, I totally believe it. Like that just sounds right. Yeah.
He just said that he just turned and he would get so tickled and laugh.
Yeah.
And he could feel his body healing. God healed.
Wow. Yeah.
Look up that book.
Yeah. Yeah.
Then he goes, these are making me feel bad.
Yeah.
I think laughter to some extent, Lewis brings up this, but I think to some extent it's easiest to compare to music.
Mm.
In that of all the art forms, music has the particular ability to kind of bypass everything and go right from sense to emotion.
Mm.
You can listen to about 4 bars of a piece of music and feel fear, joy, excitement, peace,
Wow.
tranquility,
Yeah.
pumped up for something, etc. It kind of just bypasses everything and hits right
Yeah.
the emotion itself. And I think
Yeah.
laughter does it to some extent.
That's great. Yeah.
The other thing that comes to mind is this is going to seem like a really weird place to go, but around C.S. Lewis, some old Greek festivals, they would have these theatrical performances. There was always 3 comedies, or 3 tragedies and a comedy. So if you had to read any of the Greek tragedies in high school, so this would be Sophocles, Aeschylus, Oedipus, all of those guys. That's what this is from. But one of the things that, the reason that they have tragedies and comedies, but not other genres, is because the point of doing them was to get to catharsis. Is there's a point where you've either cried so heavily or laughed so heavily that you kind of just exhausted every emotion you've got and you almost feel better or more on the other side when you start.
Yeah.
And it's just kind of, like I said, it kind of compares to crying in that way. It's just another sheer, pure emotional response that kind of bypasses everything else.
Yeah.
It's why you feel better after you've cried really hard or laughed really hard.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. So laughter, these types of emotions like laughter, as Kai, you're saying, they just have the ability to take us from, say it again, from one to emotion. What was the first thing? From a
Sense to emotion.
from a sense to an emotion. Yeah.
So if you're looking at a painting or something, you have to like sit and think and consider, question, interrogate. You have to do it with a book too. Music.
Yeah. 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 So it's powerful because it bypasses our sort of maybe our reasoning faculties. It's able to get straight to our emotions and passions quickly. That's a good response.
And music can do that. Music can make you have deep reflection.
Yeah. That's right. That's right. Yeah. That's good. Very profound. Thank you, Hezekiah. 2 thoughts here. I had about this laughter. Why is laughter such a powerful force for good? The thing about joyous laughter that Sandy was talking about is that it's a means of grace. It awakens in us a desire for more of itself. I love this great line from Chesterton. I always quote him as if I read him every week. I haven't read him in years, but he's just so great. He says that the paradox of love is that we continue to pursue it after that in which we've already found. And I think that this joyous laughter, which comes from heaven, which comes from the joyful one, is that it awakens in us a desire for more than this world can offer, and for a better country. And so it awakens that joy that can only be satisfied by God himself. And that's why this kind of laughter, when we begin to desire God himself, what weapons can our enemy forge against that except to pervert our joy, to pervert our laughter, to get us to find a different kind of humor. So one, I think the reason why joyous laughter is so powerful is because it awakens in us a desire for more, which can only be satisfied by God himself. So, yeah, this.
For a wife to hear her husband and children laugh together is a symphony.
Oh, I believe it. I hope it works that way for husbands too. No, it's so true. Yeah. Actually, my spiritual father, he told me this about his kids. He said he had 2 daughters. He still has 2 daughters. When they were young, middle school, grade school, he says when the older one would come to him with a straight A report card, but during that semester that she earned that card, she was kind of rough with her sister, or just kind of not really loving towards her or sympathetic towards her, maybe kind of rude towards her. He's like, I was proud of the grades, but it didn't ransom my heart. right? He says, but in those semesters where she would bring me like a report card with a bunch of B's and C's on it, but I would hear them in their bedroom belly laughing, and I would see the way that her older sister would take Corey under her arm, and whenever she was getting picked on, and she would just speak truth to her and remind her of how beautiful and how loved she was. He said there was nothing that I wouldn't give them. I would pour out all my love on that. So, yeah, I think spot on. I think, okay, so we just talked about the power of joyful laughter, this flippant laughter, though it's also powerful. The reason why it's powerful is because once something has been laughed at, it begins to lose its authority. So if the enemy can make us to laugh at our faith, or to, you hear this sometimes with secular professors, they'll make fun of the Bible, right? And then all of a sudden, this freshman student who just came out of Sunday school, he's now at the big university, here's all these really smart people, and they're mocking and making fun of the Bible and laughing at it. The real problem isn't, they've not actually opened it up yet and exposed any problems with it or challenges with it. They've just begun to mock it, and it's begun to lose its authority. So laughter is powerful because it begins to undermine the authority. It's once something has been laughed at, it begins to lose its authority. So laughter, it can bring us one step from heaven or one step from hell. Laughter is powerful.
Pick up a book, a Christian book, supposedly, and once you read a few pages, you can almost tell where that person is coming from with his respect for God.
Yeah, yeah,
Divinity of it.
yeah. That's right.
And it's so disgusting when you see him sort of flippant about.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Okay, so let's do some more reflective, more personal reflective stuff here. What kind of laughter do you find yourself most engaged in?
Laughing at myself.
Laughing at yourself. What a beautiful thing.
It happens often. Me.
What a gift, though. Think about today. What did you laugh today? Think about what made you laugh today or yesterday.
We were driving over tonight, and our son called, and Jan and he began reminiscing about the amount of snow, and when Nina was closed down, the streets were closed.
Mm-hmm.
They were just rollicking,
Yeah,
reminiscing about those days when that
yeah. Beautiful.
And we put him in danger.
It's easy for us to laugh at now. Okay, yeah, this is maybe, you don't necessarily have to share this one out loud, but this is something really, I think, this is an insightful question to consider in light of what we've read. What do you joke about instead of taking seriously? Or put another way, where does humor become a way of avoiding what you should be taking seriously? Yeah.
They've had really bad upbringing.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of their humor comes from their pain
Tragedy.
in their life.
Yeah.
And it just made me think about that.
Yeah.
Especially people tell jokes.
Yeah.
Which can get into the flippancy.
Yeah.
We're laughing, but it's their pain that's coming out.
Yeah.
They say the joke. And sometimes they tend to be cruel too, in their humor too.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think about Don Rickles. You know who Don Rickles is?
I don't.
He would make a joke about everybody. It didn't matter, blacks, whites, he was Jewish.
Mm-hmm.
But if you ever watch him, usually at the end though, he would almost do a blessing.
Mm.
He'd say, I love you, I know you, and so everybody was in on the joke. The
Yeah.
person that he would make fun
Mm-hmm.
of.
Mm-hmm.
You can look him up on YouTube.
Yeah.
But he could get away with it because it was so, I won't say innocent, but everybody was in it.
Yeah.
It wasn't malicious.
It wasn't malicious.
Mm.
and
It was
wasn't
inclusive.
mean-spirited.
Yeah.
I mean, he would say the black guy.
Yeah,
the
yeah,
Jew,
yeah.
whatever, and they would be laughing.
Mm-hmm.
And if you do look at YouTube and some like these awards banquets
Yeah.
And he said, well, God bless you,
Hmm. Yeah.
It was really, really neat.
Yeah. Wow. It's powerful.
But I don't know about his upbringing, but a lot of comedians come from
Yeah.
a dark place.
Yeah. Yeah. Man. Yeah. Just think about Robin Williams. Yeah. That's who comes to mind.
Rodney Dangerfield,
Oh, yeah.
he was a coke addict. I mean, he was a drug
Yeah.
addict.
Yeah.
And a lot of those guys had, their lives were hell.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I guess, what is it when you, cathartic?
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
But we laugh, people laugh.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
That's kind of,
Yeah, it can be a way of again, distancing ourselves from the thing that's actually trying to consume us, or the thing that we're too ashamed to be identified with. Right. It's not me, it's this other thing. Right. There's distance here, and we've accomplished that, creating that distance by making a joke out of it. But there are some things that we should, and sometimes we understand that when someone when they've been through so much trauma of some sort, and they have to in order to survive, in order to breathe. But our enemy is trying to get us to do this with our faith, right? And there are moments, or maybe there are places or people that we get around sometimes, and that's where the temptation arises. And maybe we make a joke, or we sort of push that down. We avoid reflecting on that, or again, we make a joke about it. We treat it flippantly. And I think we should think about that. And I think maybe this will be part of our counter strategy, is reflecting on the areas in which we may be not taking seriously enough the things that the Spirit is trying to draw attention to, but that for some reason or another, maybe because of a community that we're part of, we make light of it, we joke about it, we avoid it. I talked about this last week. Like I grew up in such a sort of legalistic community that whenever I kind of got free from that legalism and experienced God's grace and freedom and the power of grace to actually obey, that was the goal of that's where I ended up. But there was a period there, and I still feel tempted sometimes to go back there, where after I broke free from the legalism to sort of mock the people who took God's law seriously, and I would use language like puritanical, right? My best friend in college, his wife she was super holy, and we knew it. And this was actually our playful way of honoring her. We would give her a hard time, and we called him holy and called her Puritan. But I know it sounds very mean-spirited, and we were college boys. We probably were. But the point is that was a way of, I had come out of this legalism, and I had not yet learned how to, I think it was Luther who said every Christian needs two baptisms, a baptism out of the world and then a baptism back into it. Freed from the thing that kept us slaves to sin and death, but then free to then enter back in and to not be controlled by those things. And so legalism, what does legalism get right? It gets that we should take God's law seriously, right? That there's a high price to pay when we take the things of God lightly. That God's law is for our good. It's descriptions of reality from an infinite perspective, and He always has our best interests in mind. But if your attitude is, I have to do this for God to love me, then legalism is suffocating, right? I needed to be delivered from that. But I needed to be able to come back into that and to see that God's law was actually a gift that leads to life, not one that I had to master in order to be loved, right? In between those two periods is when I really felt the temptation to mock those people who those holy rollers, right? Those Puritans, right? And that was, I'll confess to you that sometimes there's some pieces of literature, some Christian communities that they seem so almost overly focused on their own on their own holiness. It's a temptation. I want to go like, oh, they're doing it again. They're the legalist. And there's an attempt to sort of be flippant towards what they actually just take seriously. I don't know if they're legalist, but here's this attitude of flippancy towards them because maybe there's a part of my life that I'm not yet fully submitted to the Lord, that if I were to actually spend time with them or to think like them or to read their literature, that I might actually be exposed in some ways. So this was, when I was reading this was a really good exercise for me. I had to think about where What do I joke about instead of taking seriously? I make jokes about my friend Holy and Puritan, his wife. I don't anymore, but you know what I'm saying. I think that's important for us to think about. What do you joke about instead of taking seriously? Where does humor become a way of avoiding seriousness? Last question here. Our humor, like our desires, are shaped by others. Whose humor do you find yourself echoing? I'm going to give you that one. We got about 3 minutes left, and I want to do Compline, so I'm going to give you that one for some homework, okay? To think about our attitudes are not, our desires are not formed in a vacuum, but neither are our senses of humor. Some counter strategies for this week. They're a bit repetitive. These come from last week, similar to last week here. A social audit. Once again, consider the voices that are shaping your imagination and attitudes to what matters most. Ask whether these influences are forming you into the person you hope to become. Then, like adjusting their dial on a radio, make changes so a different music begins to play. So remember what we talked about last week, you are the average of your 3 closest friends, right? So that your desires, your desires were not formed in a vacuum, that your desires are imitated. You imitate the desires of the people around you. The same thing happens with our sense of humor. You will laugh at the thing that other people around you laugh at as a way of being a part of that community. So I want you to think, right now there's this great phrase or quote in business that says, your system is perfectly designed to give you the outcome that you are getting. Right? So if you want a different outcome, you're going to have to do what? You're going to have to redesign the system. So here's my very practical challenge. I'd like for you to think about one person in your life that you know, that's local, that you would like to be more like. And I want you to schedule some time with them, sometime next week or sometime this coming month, and maybe even begin to make a habit of doing that. Because what will happen over time is that you will begin to imitate their desires and also their sense of humor, and therefore your attitude will begin to reflect their attitude, which we know is a powerful thing. So if you want to become a different kind of person, look around and ask, who is the kind of person I want to become like, and then go spend time with that person. Okay, number 2, reflection. Adopt the spiritual practices of silence and examination. So this is a great thing to do in the morning. Ask the Spirit to reveal where your attitude is out of step with God's word or his ways. Have any of you ever read the book, The Practice of the Presence of God by Brother Lawrence? Okay, it's a freebie. I'll bring a copy of it next week, and if anyone gets my trivia question right, you get the book. But what Brother Lawrence would do, every morning he'd wake up at 4 a.m, and he would just sit in silence with God, and he would say, okay, Lord, yesterday, where was I out of step with your word or your ways? And he would just sit quietly, and he would allow the Spirit to search him and to know him and to reveal the places where his life was out of step with God's word or his ways. Not just overt sins, but even his attitude. Which brings us to the last one here, confession. Practice confessing not only your sins after they occur, but also the attitudes and desires that quietly lead you toward them. So I think I mentioned this. My best friend, Richard Gandy, we've been having coffee. Before I moved here, we've been having coffee for 15 years. Every Friday morning, we have coffee for 15 years. He's what I call a nothing friend. There's nothing he doesn't know about me. And I seldom ever have to confess a sin to him because he sees it coming a mile away, because he first detects it in my attitude. And he says to me, Eric, if you keep thinking like that, I think before long you're going to find yourself between a rock and a hard place. And what a gift he is to me to be able to help me to see what I can't see. Because self-deception is real, and it's one of the ways that our enemy, right, seeks to lead us down a path that leads to ruin. So, one, I want to challenge you to find that kind of friend. And if you don't have that kind of friend, I want to challenge you to be that kind of friend. But in the meantime, I want to remind you that I'm a priest. Father Michael's a priest. This is our job. And you don't just have to come and confess your sins after you've done them. You can come and confess your disordered desires, the things you've been thinking about, but that you know if you acted on would be a sin, and you'd have to come and confess later on, right? I want to encourage you to do that, because when we shine a light in the darkness of our own hearts, the devil has to flee. And what a gift it would be to be able to avoid so much unnecessary heartache that comes from being enslaved to sin and obeying it as our master. So that's my 3 strategies for you. Take a social audit. Who do you want to be like? And this is never over, is it? We're always becoming. Who do you want to finish like? So begin spending time with that person. Reflection and confession. Okay. Let's take a wrap. We're going to do Compline. We're going over just 2 minutes here, but it'll be on page 57. I'm going to invite you to stand as you are able. The Lord Almighty grant us a peaceful night and a perfect end. Our help is in the name of the Lord.